Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to Women in DevOps. This is our 17th event, I believe, off the top of my head, and we are now 1 year in to online webinars, which is absolutely crazy. We're really, really proud this month to be celebrating Black History Month and to be celebrating inspiring Black voices in tech. And we have a really incredible panel this evening, hosted by my co-founder, Sabrina, here in the USA. If you haven't heard of Women in DevOps before, you haven't been to our events before, Women in DevOps is a very unique global platform. We have over 6,000 members now to amplify the voices of not just women, but all minority groups within DevOps and the wider technology world, to break down those social barriers and drive positive change throughout the DevOps industry. I am joined tonight by a very special man, Ari from JFrog. They are our platinum partner and have been now for the second year running, which is really exciting. And he always has some really fun stuff to give away. So before we dive in, we give everyone else a chance to sign in. Ari, I'd love to hand over to yourself a little bit more about JFrog and your exciting giveaway.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Lucy. And boy, I'm really excited about the panel discussion this evening. Really looking forward to that. I'm going to share a slide here, which hopefully will bring some good cheer to everybody. Of course, they're probably not going to listen to what I say now that this slide is up, right? It's a little that in itself speaks louder than me sometimes. But well, happy 2021, everyone. I'm Ari Waller, and I work for JFrog, and I'm their meetup event manager. And we are really, really excited to participate again as a sponsor for Women in DevOps. I'll just share a little bit about who we are. JFrog is a DevOps software company known best for Artifactory, which is considered by many as the gold standard for managing your artifacts and dependencies. What you may not know, though, is that JFrog now offers a free cloud subscription for you to use for your projects. And you can even attend one of our free hands-on workshops so we can teach you how to use it. Also, if you are working with Docker images, which I'm assuming many of you are, in Docker Hub, our free tier service includes the capability of serving as a proxy cache. And the best part is, because of the partnership that JFrog has with Docker, by using the JFrog free tier, you'll bypass any of the Docker Hub rate limits for anonymous access. So that's a really, really cool feature. For tonight, before we get to our talk, JFrog is going to give you a chance to enter to win a Nintendo Switch Lite. You can enter with the QR code or the bit.ly that you see on the slide. I'm also going to drop it in the chat in just a few moments. And I wish I could do a live drawing. I can't. However, a winner is going to be selected in 2 business days, and then within 2 business days, rather. And then we are going to contact them via email and then share the good news with the entire Women in DevOps community. So we're really excited about that. But again, thank you, Lauren, and thank you, everybody, for all you do for the community, and just really, really excited to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I've just realized as well that my Zoom name says Lucy. Name is Lauren. Lucy is my marketing manager. So do forgive me. And yeah, for those who aren't watching live, which is probably the majority of you, unfortunately, that is just for live attendees. Always a good excuse to make sure you attend live next time. So before I hand over to Sabrina to start tonight's event, I just wanted to remind everyone about the live networking event. What I'll do at the end of tonight's panel is I'll pop the link into the chat box. So make sure you keep an eye on that. Please direct all of your questions this evening for our lovely panelists into the Q&A box. And I hope you all really, really enjoy this. There's going to be some really valuable lessons and guidance and things for this evening. So I hope that you enjoy it and continue to support Women in DevOps. Sabrina, over to you.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to introduce myself. As Lauren said, my name is Sabrina. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a partner at Women in DevOps, and I'm based here in Los Angeles. My job here is to introduce our incredible panelists. I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear about all of their accomplishments and ideas. But I'd like them to introduce themselves. So if we could go around and each talk a little bit about ourselves. Nella, would you mind beginning?
Sure, thank you. And thank you for inviting me here as well to to Women in DevOps, as well as into everyone's home. I know all of us are trying to stay safe. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I am the Scrum Master of Zigzee. It's a tech company based out of Tustin, California, if you're familiar with the Orange County area, right around there. And I came into tech, like with most people, it's not very common or natural. So I, as an immigrant from Kenya, was supposed to become a doctor. And instead I decided to go into operations. And instead of doing my post-bac in medicine, I ended up doing my MBA in business and then found myself in finance with New American Funding. And from there, I was picked up through some amazing mentors of mine to Zigzee. And I was introduced to this world of women in DevOps through another nonprofit called Wonder Women Tech, where I was able to become the chief of staff there. And similar to Women in DevOps, I've been able to travel in London, and we also had our Long Beach conference in DC as well. So it's exciting now to be on this side of this platform. Normally I'm behind the scenes running conferences. So I'm very excited to now have peers in tech, going from the operations and project management side to now having a Scrum Master role, working with my own team of developers and amazing QA as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for everyone for being here and for inviting me to be a part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nella. Johnny, would you mind going next?
Sure. I'm Johnny. I'm the CTO of Till in Washington, D.C. Till is a startup helping renters pay, stay, and thrive in their homes through customized rental payment schedules. Made my way into tech by fluke accident. Went into college studying aeronautics, kind of hated it, needed to change my major. Asked my roommate what his major was. He said computer science. Thought to myself, I like downloading music on the internet. Computer science it is, but turns out I was pretty good at programming and fell in love with it. So I've been doing that ever since.
Very, very nice. Thanks so much, Johnny. And B, would you mind going next?
Yeah, so I'm B. Pagels Minor. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I work in product at a very large media company. And so how do I get in tech? So actually, similar to Nella, I was supposed to be something else. I was supposed to be an attorney. And I actually was in law school, and then I got like the best job offer. And I was just like, should I go do this tech thing that I don't really understand? Or should I try to write out however much loan money it's going to cost me to finish this law school? And so I just took the money up front. I always take the money up front, just FYI. Just if you win a lottery, also take the money up front. And so that's how I ended up in tech, and I never looked back.
Awesome. Thanks so much, B. And Ademu Shoyo, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ademu Shoyo Awoshika Lumo. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior software engineer at MailChimp, which is an email marketing company. I got my first start in tech. I studied it in computer engineering, but before that, I come from like Nigerian immigrant household, so I was really into being a doctor. And then I got to like high school, and I was like, actually, I don't want to do that. And it became time to apply to colleges, and I was like, oh, like I kind of like engineering, I kind of like computers, and so I just kind of went for it, and I kind of tossed around doing different types of engineering, but I always stumbled upon like, oh, I just want to be able to code and like apply it to different industries. So that's kind of why I stuck with doing engineering. And then I graduated with my degree from the University of Pittsburgh, and that led me to my first job in New York City, and the rest is history since then.
Nice. Thank you all so much for giving your time and energy this evening. It's so appreciated. Let's jump into it, shall we? So I would love to start the conversation by talking about a distinction that B brought up in a conversation that we had. Specifically, they said there's a distinction between a collaborator and an ally. in the workplace. So B, I would love to start with you. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about the difference there?
Yeah, so so let's first like maybe define what I mean when I say collaborator versus ally, right? So what I mean by that is there are a lot of people who aren't bad per se, right? They're not the person who's going to come out and be outwardly racist or prevent someone from having a job, say the N word, just be derogatory, right? But they're also people who, when they see those types of behavior, maybe don't say anything, right? And especially in the workplace, I think a common way that this shows up is that, like, for instance, you may witness that someone who is a person of color is trying to express themselves or bring up a specific point, and you, as someone who is collaborating versus being an ally, will see that that person is being talked over and not given a chance to talk, and you just never say anything. And so then let's like convert that into what allyship looks like in that situation. Allyship looks like, oh, everyone stop talking. This person has been trying to get in here and actually participate and should have this opportunity to show how brilliant they are. So let them talk, right? And so this is something that I've been thinking a lot about this year. Obviously, with this, all of the social unrest that happened in 2020, in addition to COVID, it's become very apparent that there's a lot of collaborators out there, right? There's a lot of people who are perfectly good people in a lot of ways, but they don't stand up and say something and advocate actively for other people. And so the question is like, how do we actually start converting you to being allies? And the things that I come up with are, being courageous. Like, that's something that just like legitimately, like, I was in a coffee shop the other day, and this homeless guy who always is at this coffee shop. I know him. He's chill as all get out. But someone who happened to be coming to the coffee shop who had never seen this guy before starts complaining and says they're going to call the police. And I was like, oh no, you're brand new here. He's been here, right? So like I was an ally to this individual that I don't know because that was the right thing to do, right? The second thing about it is about curiosity. So one of the reasons I was able to be an ally to this gentleman is because I've seen him all the time. I've had a conversation with him. I didn't assume that he was worthless, that he was less, that he had no worth. I assume that just like everyone else in the world, there's a story there, and maybe I just don't know it, right? And so those are some like those quick activities when you start thinking about your allyship journey, that you can start triggering the right responses in yourself so that you can become an ally and move away from that collaboration mentality.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bean. Ademushoyo, I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. Would you mind jumping in here?
Yeah, I really like that take, especially because I feel like sometimes we think that because we're not in position of power, AKA we're not like a director or we're not a manager, that we can't be an ally. And sometimes being an ally is just like making sure that people are hearing the person that is speaking. So one of my favorite things, one of the things that like I really appreciate is when I'm talking, and sometimes, a lot of times, my ideas get run over by someone else's a lot of times in meetings. And I really appreciate the people that are like, oh, it's like what Ademu Shoyo said about this idea, and reminding people that it was my original idea. And it's something so small, or what appears so small, but it's something that really speaks volumes of like making sure that you're amplifying work. And it has nothing to do with like a seniority, junior complex or anything like that. So I think like effective allyship goes beyond just like making sure that nothing's happening. It's really taking it that step forward and making sure that people are actually being heard in the workplace.
Absolutely. I know we have in our audience a lot of people who are maybe managers or team leads who have, people on their team that they want to advocate for. Specifically, as a manager or a team leader, how can these people be advocating for diverse voices on their team? We can start with Ademo Shoyo if you want to continue on that vein.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes from like making sure you're fostering a very collaborative environment, make sure you're fostering an environment in which everyone's opinions are being heard, and making sure that if someone is quiet, that you're asking them, what do they think? Or making sure that you're including them in those conversations. And I think it's also believing your underrepresented minorities when they say that something's up. There's been times where I've been afraid to say something like, because I'm like, am I crazy or is it actually really happening? And in the times that I've been able to kind of say what's on my mind or what I'm feeling about things, I've had situations where someone was like, oh no, it's not that big of a deal. But I've had situations where someone's like, no, we need to address this now. We need to make sure that this isn't something where they have an issue working with a Black woman who's a software engineer. And if that is an issue, then that needs to be addressed. So I think it's always making sure that everyone feels heard and really believing the stories in which minorities, your underrepresented minorities reports are saying, because it took a lot for them to get to the point where they're telling you. So if they're telling you, you should believe them.
And Johnny, would you mind chirping in here as well?
Sure. I mean, what Ade Michelle said was spot on. As someone who is a manager, I've seen this a lot throughout my career. Folks speak up, nothing happens. You have sometimes situations where even HR is not very helpful in situations like this. And it's really important to make sure that you really dig into the situation and figure out what's going on, because just because someone mentions something in passing doesn't necessarily mean it's not a big deal, right? It may just be a manifestation of how they've expressed themselves. So that's really, really important. I think also, as people who are in leadership positions, it's really important that we're advocates and sponsors for people from our marginalized communities behind the scenes, right? Because we have an opportunity to kind of be in rooms and in discussions at tables where decisions are made where other folks don't necessarily have access to. But these people, you have one-on-ones with them, they have really good ideas. So being an advocate for those folks and say, hey, you know what, I heard, such and such brought this up in my one-on-one. Maybe we should think about XYZ. Make sure you extend that credit where credit is due, as opposed to just coming in and saying, I came up with this idea, right? It's a very small thing. It doesn't take much, but it can have big impact on someone's career long after everyone sort of like left that room.
Yeah, giving credit and shouting out is such a great practice. I think we all should be doing more. B, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so obviously, I think all of these are really great tips, but I think one thing that I always like to take a step back from is acknowledge the fact that I think there's been an assumption that managers and team leaders get it. Like you rise to the top, you get the job, and you're supposed to be good, right? And the simple fact is that it's not a stagnant, stationary role, right? You should be constantly educating yourself as a manager, as a leader about what's going on. So it's not just about, oh, like how do I work within the protocols of my organization, or how do I think about my particular individuals that I'm working with. It's also like I should be reading articles about how to make sure I'm helping create great work-life balance. I should be reading articles about how like you can like personality traits and how I should be adapting myself to different personality traits. It's literally a second job to be a manager, if you really want to be excellent at it. So first of all, I would say that there's a specific responsibility to try to be excellent, right? And then if you try to focus on the excellence, then all those nuances that Johnny and that they said like starts coming through. Like you can actually see people in a room and go, that person's also actually really awesome. And I need to be tweaking my style to make sure that I'm like elevating that particular person. And I should say, even on my own personal team, we had a situation where it was very obvious to me that one team member was sucking the air out of all the space. And so other people weren't like coming up and becoming excellent in the way that we needed. And so, I was the person that advocated to remove that person. And it's just been this beautiful like experience of seeing all of these these people who are like these little seeds like start blossoming into the flowers they're supposed to be. And it's amazing how like you have to be, again, it goes to that idea of courageous, right? Because it's like very scary to, even when you're in a leadership role, it's very scary to be like, I really don't think this person should be here, right? Because you're thinking about, that person, like generally people have other people they're responsible for. So you're like, are their kids going to eat? Are they going to be able to pay their mortgage? But at the same time, you have to think about the whole picture, right? And when you start thinking about the whole picture, of super encouraged, motivated, supported team creates so much more business value than a team that feels like they're not actually getting the support that they need and that they're being heard. And so I also, like, you know, whenever I suggest these things to people, I'm just like, can we afford to lose that money? Like, can we afford to lose that opportunity, that potential? And the thing is, you can't, right? And so then it starts changing that conversation again from these are things you should do just because you should be looking up diverse voices to economically, your bonus is not going to be as sexy this year because you can't be as productive, right? And so I always like to like harken on that particular point, the responsibility we have to our organizations to be people who advocate for all voices in the room.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. And I like what you mentioned about how we assume that managers get it too. So I would love to pose the question to Nella. Nella, how do we hold leadership accountable?
I think that connects right back to what B was saying about being courageous. And I love the idea that, not even the idea, but I am really excited that we're no longer saying that I don't see color. And the most important part is that you need to see the people that are in the room. You need to see the people that need to enter the room. So when we have our ERGs or different types of group chats where people can talk about their experiences, or forums where they can hear about their experiences, I think that's wonderful, as well as being able to reach out and, for example, like my manager and this opportunity, you know, may I confirm that I have the right link? I want to make sure that I'm there to support you. And little things like that are wonderful. And I appreciate that so much. So I think there's a lot to it, but definitely making sure that you're seeing people and that you're keeping your manager accountable. And not only is it their responsibility, that you are managing all of these people, you're managing emotions. So you have to make sure that you're being your best. So you would hope that as long as we are present, I know a lot of us were thinking, especially with all of the unrest, like, just we don't want to have to constantly be advocating for ourselves, but at the same time, sometimes just showing up and, you know, having your camera on during a conference call, letting people know that there is someone of color, there's a Black woman, there's a Black person in this room, and you can talk about your experiences and hopefully you're comfortable about speaking up. But once again, you need to be courageous to be able to keep your managers aware that you are here, as well as them understanding that they have a responsibility to you.
Thank you so much, Nella. Any other comments on the topic of holding leadership accountable from anyone? All right, that's fine. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say one thing. So I was in this summit recently, and this, you know, Wade works at my company, and he got up there and he said that accountability is a love language, right? And it was just like such a powerful statement. And I've just been like legitimately just like percolating on that for a while. Because again, you know, when we think about actually employees, they're not that different than toddlers, right? So like as adults, we're exactly like little children. And it's basically this simple idea of we want order, we want structure, and we want to know that someone cares about us and loves us, right? And so when I am thinking about my organization, this is what I tell them. I'm always just like, our kids need us. Like our kids need us to show them that we are accountable and thus we are showing them love. And again, it goes back to that idea of that productivity piece of it. It's just like, this is like the no-brainer things that we're starting to try to program in people's heads so that they start like internalizing DEI and how important it is to the overall health of the organization.
Thank you so much. While we're on the topic of leadership, there was an article recently that came out. It said at Google, only 2.6% of leadership team is Black. Facebook is only 3.1%. Obviously, managers, hiring managers, we've been talking about them, but how do we make the C-suite more diverse? And I will start with Johnny on that one. Would be great.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The thing that comes to my mind is I think we really need to do better in giving people these first time opportunities, right? Everyone wants that the seasoned leader, right? I mean, you see it all over LinkedIn. I'm probably guilty of this as well, like in my own bio, but that's the thing that everyone goes for. I want the seasoned person, right? But, that person had to start somewhere, someone gave that person an opportunity to step up. And, those opportunities don't come around very often. And when they do, I think we need to really take a look at just take a look at the profile of people who have traditionally been given those opportunities with just so much goodwill and just sort of I know you're going to do it, know you're going to like kill it, without really any previous track record of actually doing so. um, so I think we need to take that same grace and extend it to other people from other groups. And that's really the only way we can actually provide a truly equitable pool of qualified candidates to actually be available for these positions, right? You can't become a quote unquote seasoned leader if no one's going to take a chance on you. No one's going to give you a shot. No one's going to give you that promotion past middle management, right? It's so rare. And so I think really it goes back to what we've been talking about, being courageous as leaders to sort of like, believe in your people and know that they can do it, and like support them once you put them there, right? You don't just throw them in and say, okay, kids, you got it, that sort of thing. It all comes down to supporting people as they move into these roles and making sure that you not only model what it takes to be a good leader, but also you recognize that you've done things wrong, right? Take that feedback and say, I want to do things a little bit differently than you've been doing it, Johnny, because I've seen that you've missed here. You have a blind spot here. And so also being very humble in the way you receive feedback is going to be really important.
Thank you so much. And B, would you mind providing your thoughts on this as well?
Yeah, this is one that's very interesting. So my organization recently kind of changed a lot of things. We have co-CEOs now, with the expectation that one of the co-CEOs will then take over the sole CEO and like this COO thing. And it was so interesting because they did this whole big announcement, and like all of us were just like, this is a whole bunch of white guys that all are still in leadership and still in power. But it was really interesting because like the way that they actually conversed about it is something that I think is very important, because I think it's a telling point that they realize, and that hopefully other organizations realize. And it was just basically like, we got to this point and we wanted to talk about what our, succession plan was going to look like. And there's only 2 or 3 people who qualified. And it was because we had only invested 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years in these people, right? These are the only people that we felt comfortable with because we had invested this time and energy with them, and they all looked like the same people. And so it was like a very much like this moment of, oh, we have to do better. Like we have to try to go out there. We have to try to mentor other individuals. We have to bring them into our circle, and we have to make ourselves uncomfortable so that we can actually be the type of organization that we want to be, which is that you can have diverse people, in the C-suite. I mean, not to say this company doesn't have, diverse people in the C-suite, but it was just that point. It was like that actual acknowledgement. And so this goes to Jonah's point, right? Like, you have to bring people into your organization, you have to trust them, and then you have to nurture them. And even if they don't look like you, even if it's like the person who actually annoys you, right? Like you have to actually go out of your way to spend time and nurture those folks, because you have to give them the specific opportunity to be the next leader. One of the things I love about my particular manager, he approaches every single employee as you could be the next CEO of this company. And if you have that mentality, it just completely changes everything, because all of a sudden you have to really start taking some time to invest in these folks, because you're like, you could literally be my boss one day, and I want to make sure I leave a good impression on you. So I think if you start like inversing these relationships and takes it from like you are the person in power, but instead putting the power on them, it's like you have the power to completely virtually change my experience, my company, everything else. It just creates a completely different dynamic and a better way to think about how you're going to develop individuals long term.
That's great. Thank you so much, B. On that topic, Twitter pledged 25% of its executives would be minority or women by 2025. Personally, when I'm working with candidates who are women or BIPOC candidates, I often, feel stressed out when I'm sending them to an organization where they don't have anyone who looks like them in the room. I would love to hear how organizations if and can they appeal to diverse talent without already having a diverse workforce in place? Maybe we'll start with Ademu Shoyo for this one.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is not just trying to hire one and like making that one person be the token person in the organization, trying to hire a group of people so they can find that sense of community amongst each other. And also not trying to hire one that fits all of the different boxes as well, because that also isn't helpful or productive. And I think making sure that they have sponsorship, not just mentorship within the organization as well. And I think having those two things and making sure there's already a sense of establishment in community and like everyone cares about bettering the diversity and inclusion efforts within the company, not just the D&I folks or the people in the BERGs or the employee resource groups, is going to be really key in making sure that it's like, okay, like, yeah, like it's small, you don't really have a lot of diversity, but they are making steps to try, and they are trying to provide a welcoming environment.
Gotcha, thank you so much. And Johnny, would you mind speaking to this topic as well?
Yeah. Maybe it's my age a little bit. I've grown a little bit pessimistic about this topic over time, only because, maybe 10 years ago, I'd be a bit more optimistic that companies would be able to sort of really sell themselves to folks from diverse backgrounds if the workforce didn't really look like them. But I mean, over the past few years, the data are in, we've done the studies. We know that teams or organizations with diverse boards, diverse leadership, diverse workplaces produce better products, have more revenue. There's literally no other argument to not have this in place, but yet we still have seen such little progress over the past few years. And so I tend to get a bit frustrated there. Granted, I mean, there's always hope. I think companies can do a lot. I look forward to the day where it's just not that big of a deal that you have the Black and brown folks and women like on your engineering team. I think there are a couple organizations that are out there that are probably doing this pretty well. But I'm looking to, I'm looking for more, and I'm hoping for more, and I really want more.
Absolutely.
I would love to add to that, if I may.
Please do.
Thank you. From my past experience working with like underserved, underrepresented minorities in healthcare, when we would want to, for example, have the new director of the med school, I personally went to UC Riverside, to have an opportunity to have a Black woman be the director. The organization that I was a part of, we made sure all the Black physicians within our organization, took her out to lunch, took her to dinner, talked about the community. You're bringing in community members even for the recruitment process as well. So I think she appreciated that. And then we had all of our pre-med students as well welcome her so she would feel more comfortable. Because of course, when you have such talented Black professionals, they are able to ask for more. They're able to go to more places. So of course, it's a little bit harder depending on your location and your company to be able to garner that talent. So I think it'd be wonderful if tech companies would be more open to reaching out to the community and the groups that are trying to bring more people down the pipeline, and encourage them to know that you have not only support within the company, but support within your community.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nella, for that example. I think that's really powerful. And B, would you mind sharing your thoughts on this this topic as well?
Yeah, it's actually, so this is like, it feels very like timely to me. So I posted on LinkedIn not that long ago about like how companies just need to do better or whatever. And so a few different, women of color reached out to me and they were like, B, I'm actually contemplating a company right now that has no other Black people there or has no other Asian people there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's really funny because they were like, do you think I'm making a terrible decision if I take this job? And so my response to them was simply, no, it's not a terrible decision. If you've been in the market for 3, 6, 12 months, you need a job, you need to pay your bills, take that job. But then I said right afterwards, but make an exit plan. right? And so that's the thing. So do I think that companies can appeal to people of color if they don't already have people of color? Of course, like we need money, we need to get experience, we need to get everything we need to be able to move forward in our lives. However, getting that person and keeping that person, that's the stuff that's hard. And that's why when you started talking about, what Adi Michalia was saying, like that's the stuff you have to do to actually retain that person. And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of companies, especially smaller companies. Now I will say that like larger tech companies are at least trying to do some stuff, right? Like they're not necessarily great at it, right? Like, because like the thing is, I don't think any of us would give anyone an A+ at anything, right? Like some people are getting C's, so at least they're passing, but they're not getting A+. And so like there is like that aspect of it, right? It's just like, yes, I will take a job because I have to pay my bills, but I know that every single day I'm there's probably going to be at least one thing that's going to bother me or make me feel bad, and so I'm not going to want to stay there. And so that's the dream scenarios where like, how can we actually start, again, show like, to Johnny's point, all the data shows that companies that have us do better. But it doesn't seem to be translating that business value is more important than those like very antiquated, terrible ideas that they promote.
Yeah, exactly. And I would love to talk about retention a little bit more as well. So Nella brought up a great point that mentorship and sponsorship also play a great role in retention of diverse talent in tech. So maybe we can go around and everyone can share the role mentorship has played with your company, and different programs that have been championed that you believe have really been effective at this. And Noah, let's start with you.
Thank you. So yes, mentorship and sponsorship has been great for me, specifically transferring into tech. So of course, I started off in this interning role with Wonder Women Tech. And then while I was there, I was also at New American Funding doing project management. And my manager, she noticed that, I was capable of doing more. So when there were opportunities for me to even have like forward facing opportunities with the CEO or the president, she would recommend me for those opportunities. And then even when I realized that maybe those positions weren't for me, I was able to reach out to our vice president of project management, Aaron Archiga. I made sure I wanted to shout him out because even when I started the company, just talking in the cafeteria or the lunchroom, wanting to learn more about my project management background and encouraging me to apply for different scholarship programs within this mortgage space that I was currently in was wonderful. So even though I'm like, oh, I'm not quite sure if I want to stay here in mortgage, but I know that this is an opportunity that they have for me to grow myself. So he literally gave me an Excel spreadsheet that listed out, what have I done for the company? Where do I see myself? What am I currently doing that is going to improve my skill sets? And then was like, okay, go ahead and schedule your appointment with your manager. So I scheduled my appointment with my manager, and before they even scheduled the meeting to review the Excel spreadsheet that I had attached to the email, I already had conversations with the vice president of Zigzee, where I'm at now, saying, we heard that you're interested in moving. These are some positions that we have available for you. We'd love to talk to you. And that definitely took me aback when it goes back to people who are championing you, even when you feel like you don't see them as much, especially in remote roles. You're like, wow, you're really thinking about me and you want me to grow. So of course, having the courage to say, no, I can do more. And this is what I've done, of course, tracking your progress. But I would definitely love to do that for other people. And I'm very appreciative for people who've done that for me.
That's a really great idea. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nella. B, would you mind speaking to this as well?
Yeah, it's so funny. So first and foremost, I should say that I actually don't like the term mentorship at all. And the reason for that is that a lot of times it's very passive, right? And so I don't really like anything that's passive because again, you can fall into that collaborator mentality, right? Because you just sit there and nothing really bad happened, but also not necessarily anything good has happened. And so I really like to lean into both teachers and sponsorship, right? Because those are both very active relationships. And so what I've been very fortunate to have in my life are a lot of teachers. So for instance, one of the things I think about teachers are people who, don't just tell you, oh, like this is an industry that's great. They go, let me, show you what I know and then connect you with this one or two or three or four other different people so that you can start actually learning and contextualizing what you need to know in order to participate in that. Right. And so for me, getting into tech, especially coming from my background, it was really just like a lot of just various tech leaders. Like the owner of my very first startup, Ryan Littleton, was just like, this is how you build a website. And he sat there with me and we actually physically, like, we were building a website together. And that skill is, that's something I will never forget. Right. And that's like the foundation in what we did. And then in terms of sponsorship, I always say a lot, like, I'm obviously, Sabrina, like you've seen a lot of my like random content online and things like that. And it was like really interesting to me because my last two jobs, they both came from people who shared my content with the hiring managers. And they were just like, this person seems cool, like you should check them out. And so that goes to this idea that like I never, like when I think about my career trajectory, honestly, I would actually still be back, like I wouldn't even gotten to Chicago. I would just be back home in Memphis, right? But it was just a whole bunch of people who were like, I think you're a great person. And so I just wanted to give you that opportunity. And they kept opening up those different doors. And that's also something that there's a responsibility from us, right? To then start doing that same exact process and then trying to like duplicate that internally. So for instance, at our company, there is like a specific mentorship program that see, again, I don't like this called mentorship because we have way more rules, but we call it the mentorship program. And we actually pair up, so it's within our Black at ERG, and we pair up like, more senior Black folks with more junior Black folks. And then we actually create this like impetus for these people to participate actively. And it's been so crazy to see how many people got promoted just from that program, and it's partially because that like the senior person are in the right rooms and they're just saying like, actually, now that I talk to this kid is amazing. Like, I think this person needs this opportunity. And so that's the kind of like, really, that's when the synergy really starts getting great there. And you just have like some excellence coming out of like the whole process.
That's awesome to hear, B. And shameless plug for your content. I love it. Everyone should go follow B on LinkedIn. Johnny, would you mind adding your thoughts to this as well?
Sure. Yeah, what B said is spot on. That of sponsorship and teaching was absolutely crucial for me. Probably 80% of the significant milestones in my career have been because someone else saw something in me that I just did not. Um, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about it. And it's just like every time. Probably one of my favorite examples is I was still in my first job. I was in government contracting, and I wanted to break out so bad and go work at a startup. Um, and I was interviewing with the gentleman. I don't remember where the job was. It was for like a JavaScript developer position, front end, years ago. Um, Interview was terrible. I did terrible. I thought I knew my stuff, didn't really know it. But he talked to me at the end and he said, look, we're not going to be able to make a job offer or move forward, but I sense like some passion there. I sense something there. If you would like, I would like to work with you, right? Take a look at these books, take a look at these articles. This is back when like everyone was writing jQuery plugins. I saw your plugin. I think there are improvements. I'm going to review it and give you some tips. And so we kept this relationship for years and years. And so fast forward about, I don't know, 14 years or something like that. He reached out last year just to kind of say hello. And, we were just chatting and catching up. And he said something to me that really stuck with me. He said, Johnny, you're like the best employee I never hired. And it really meant a lot because, at the time, this is like someone I was just like, I will never like be on this person's level. Like this person is just amazing, that sort of thing. And honestly still are. And so, and this happened so much, I can't even believe sometimes just the dumb luck. I don't know, maybe it's because I don't have hair or something, but that sponsorship and having someone to like advocate for me, pushing me to be a leader when I didn't see myself as that, pushing me to step on the stage and like give a talk when did not want to do that at all, has been absolutely crucial in my career.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad we got to talk so in depth about the importance of sponsorship and building each other up within the organization. Since we're coming almost to the end of our hour, I want to end with a question that is quite general. We've talked to some themes, right? But I think a good wrap-up question so we can all get our final thoughts in, and specifically about DE&I efforts. So we saw a lot of companies, especially in technology, putting out statements in response to the Black Lives Matter movement about DE&I, ranging everywhere from like 2 sentences on LinkedIn that leave a lot to be desired to full pages and really well thought out plans. But how do we make sure in each of our organizations that DE&I is not something that we're simply gesturing to or writing about, and it's something that we're actually embedding in our culture? Ade Mushoyo, if you have any ideas, that would be great.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is making it everyone's issue and everyone's problem. I find that sometimes in organizations, like diversity is really an afterthought. It's like, oh, like they're also really care about diversity and inclusion efforts. And it's like, if there's no incentive for people to care, they're not going to, especially when at the end of the day, it doesn't affect like them still getting promoted or them still having like the success that they do have. So it's really up to making it integral to the state and the culture of the workplace that they're in. Because otherwise, if it's just the focus on the 5 people on one team or the 30 people in one employee resource group, like it's not going to transfer over. You're just like preaching to the choir. And that, I think that's like really the biggest thing. And I think also being honest about what you mean when it comes to diversity, because diversity means a lot of different things. Are you just trying to get more women? Are you just trying to get more people of color? Are you trying to get more, like, there's so many different elements of diversity that go beyond race and gender. And it's like you creating an actual plan of like what that actually looks like. And then also including the inclusion piece. Like it's not enough to just bring all of these people in if 50% of those people go. It's really about how are we going to actually make them stay? How are we going to actually make them feel like they belong here and that they deserve to be here just as much as anyone else?
Thanks so much. I couldn't find the unmute button. B, would you mind providing your thoughts on this as well?
Yeah, so first and foremost, obviously we've been talking primarily about the tech, community, right? And so that means that like just naturally, like people of color are a smaller percentage of the tech community than other spaces. People of different gender types, people of different sexualities are not. So I wanted to share a little bit of a story about one of the organizations I'm on the board of. So this organization is an LGBTQ plus organization. So naturally, you would think this organization would be better at DE&I than most organizations, but they sucked, right? It was pitiful, right? Because you still had the same themes of white supremacy and racism that it can exist if you don't actually challenge it. And so like what we did there is that we brought in consultants. Like we brought in people to help us understand how we could be so bad at it, considering we should actually be better at this than most people. And after that, like we changed the mission of the organization. The board of directors created a committee that's just DE&I. And it's that type of institutional investment that means that like now, like, when our employees, look at us, they go, oh, like, no, you guys like really care about us. We actually feel like the equity part is happening. Like, because in terms of hiring people, we were great at hiring people, but they also just didn't make it, right? We weren't promoting people. Now that, that leadership or team of that organization is like 80% minority individuals now, right? And so like when you start thinking about that, it's just like you have to deeply invest, right? And it's like both action, it's economic investment, and then it's having that true commitment to it. So like again, even when it's so uncomfortable and you just don't want to do it because it's so stressful and you think you're never going to be able to actually accomplish it, you still have to continue to push forward if you actually want this to happen for your organization.
Thank you so much, B. And I want to make sure that everyone has had the chance to say everything that they wanted to coming into this hour. So, we're just about to wrap up. I hope you all are enjoying this as much as I am. I know I've learned so much. If y'all saw me looking down, it's because I was writing notes. Just wanted to take some actionable steps here, but I'd love for us all to go around, and if y'all could each sign off, let us know where we can follow your work, and promote anything that you're working on that you want the audience to know about. Johnny, would you mind starting?
Sure. Well, you can find me not as many places as you used to. Social media has gone very dark. But you can always find me on Twitter, Recursive Funk. That's Funk with the K. Shameless plug. Till is hiring engineers, all level, front end, back end. So if you're interested, please talk to me, reach out. Would love to talk to you all. Leaving notes would just be, this is really hard stuff in a lot of ways. It's not like, dealing with computers on a day-to-day basis. You program them to do exactly what you need, and, they'll always give you whatever you tell them. But, dealing with humans and, on all of the different spectrums on which we exist and live, and it's even dynamic within one person. These are the really difficult things to get right, but, it's not going to get done on its own. We have to really be intentional and put in the work, and that's the only way we make progress.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Thank you again for being here tonight, all the way here from DC. Nella, can you go next?
Of course, thank you. So on March 4th, I'll be also speaking for a panel for Zigzee. We're going to be having a recruitment fair. So yes, please reach out and check out that recruitment fair. If you go to Zigzee's LinkedIn, you'll be able to see all of the events that we have. And then of course, again, shameless plug for my other things that I do. I have a podcast, the No Collar podcast, currently wearing the shirt. And that's where we talk about, different creatives in different spaces. Of course, jobs that freak your parents out, like we like to say, because of my immigrant background, as well as some work that I did on the Coming to America 2 movie that's coming out on Amazon. So there's some design pieces that I helped out a friend as well there. So I hope you guys enjoy the fashion in the movie. And thank you again. Oh, apologies, forgot. So Professionella, that is my social media. So pretty much like professional and then EELLA. That's where you'll find me.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to circulate everyone's socials and blogs and everything like that after the event, so the audience has access to that. B, would you mind going next?
So I am B Pagels Minor, so no period, no dash, everywhere on the internet. I'm also the only one in the whole world. So like, I'm like legitimately the easiest person to find. So feel free to just Google me. Like I guess I said that on an internet technology situation. Yes, you can just Google me and you'll find me. And I also will put in a plug. My team, actually, we're hiring for a data engineer. So if you are a data engineer and you are potentially are interested in working with me just based on my personality, because we didn't tell you which company because we don't want to get in trouble, reach out to me and we can talk about it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, B. And Ademu Shoyo, would you mind signing off for us?
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere at Ademu Shoyo. That's like the perks of having a unique name. And I have a blog, ademushoyo.com. I also run my own digital consulting agency, and that's Creative Ventures. And I also have a podcast that I have with a friend called A Different Tech. So you can find me in all these different places, but yeah.
Thank you so much. So everyone, now you know where to find our amazing panelists. Please go follow their work, buy their stuff. Just continue reaching out. So actually, right when we were signing off, we just got another question in the Q&A, and we have a few minutes left. And since we are all hiring now, I think this is a really good question to ask. So Sophie asked, I know we have touched on recruitment as a whole, but how do you think we could better the recruitment process and early stage interviews and discussions with hiring managers to ensure a consistent process for all candidates? So I don't know which panelists have been involved with hiring before, but maybe someone can speak on that a little bit.
I'm happy to jump in. So this is actually something we talk about a lot at Till. We're still pretty early stage, and one of the things we saw very early on is that the need for a structured hiring process, right? It's not very fair for me to just kind of like jump on a call with the candidate and just kind of like shoot the shit, how's it going? It doesn't actually give an indication of, whether or not that person that is actually a good fit for our company, the things we're trying to accomplish, the ways in which they want to grow, and the ways in which we're prepared to help them grow at our current stage, and bringing that process throughout every step, right? Whether it's a technical piece and the things you're testing for, making sure you're testing for that for everyone else in pretty much the same way, and just making sure it's very consistent, because if you don't, it leaves a lot of room for bias to creep in, and you're not going to be making the best decisions on the candidates coming in.
Thank you. Does anyone else have final thoughts on that subject before we sign off and hop into our networking?
Yeah, so just really quickly. So first and foremost, you need to make sure you think about who is doing the hiring, right? Again, just like managers, you can't assume that just because someone is in a leadership position that they are capable of making the right, well, first of all, presenting the right picture to external candidates, and then also treating them well through that process. Because you also have to think about, from a startup mechanism, every single person that comes in interaction with you, that's a potential person who could connect you with your next funding opportunity. So you need to be very cognizant of that. Secondly, I like to make all first rounds for candidates the exact same thing. So like if like it's the same questions, it's the same person, it's the same blah, 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 like just to make sure that you have a consistent way to evaluate that person. And then again, once you start going to the other rounds, trying to create as much consistency as possible. So for instance, if you have a rating system, you need to clearly define what a 5 is, you need to clearly define what a 4 is, so there can't be any misconstrued intention for the different people who are part of interviewing. And again, I'm a product manager, so of course I wanted to take the human, as much of the human out of it, and make it as automated and neutral as possible. And so those are kind of my recommendations when you're doing hiring.
Thank you so much. Since we are right at 7 o'clock right now, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. Thank you all so much. We've got our networking event now, so if any folks are interested in staying and meeting each other, feel free to click the link in the chat that we've been circulating, but I know it's late for our East Coast friends, and I appreciate everyone so much. Hope to see you in the networking, but if not, let's stay in touch. Follow Women in DevOps on socials. We'll be circulating the recording of this as well, so everyone can have access to it, and also the invite to our Slack group in case anyone wants to continue the conversation. So thank you all so much for your time again, and hope to keep in touch with everyone.